Hi everybody, Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and today's contract tip, again, really isn't a contract tip. It is more of a to-do or how to manage something as a real estate agent. And the question is, what do you do when your client, whether it be a buyer client or a seller client, cannot be at closing? What do you do regarding signing the paperwork? This comes up all the time. And I have a lot of agents that ask, may the agent take the power of attorney for their client at closing? That's the question that I hope to answer today. So, number one, my answer would be that you definitely want to check with your broker. There are a lot of brokers that have a brokerage policy prohibiting you from taking power of attorney for your client for anything with respect to real estate. And let's first back up and let's look at what does this mean? What does power of attorney mean? And the definition of power of attorney might help you understand why a lot of brokers will prohibit their agents from taking that on for their clients. And basically, power of attorney it becomes a legal document that is drafted by an attorney, or it's just a legal document that allows someone to act on your behalf. And the definition is that it allows someone to make decisions about another person with respect to property, finances, medical care, so forth and so on. So that's the general definition of a power of attorney. So what type of power of attorney would be needed for a real estate transaction? That would be more of a limited or special power of attorney. That's not a durable power of attorney. Basically gives someone the right to act on their behalf in a wide variety of situations over their life. A limited or special power of attorney would be specifically relevant or give authority to another to act on their behalf with respect to real estate. So the first thing I want to tell you is you definitely would want to have an attorney, specifically a real estate attorney, and probably good practice would be to have the closing attorney of the attorney closing your transaction actually draft the power of attorney so that you can identify the legal description of the property and what authority the principal, the actual owner of the property, the person on title, is giving to another to act on their behalf with respect to this property. Transfer of property, making decisions, signing contracts, signing closing documents, so forth and so on. So number one, definitely you want to have an attorney, real estate attorney specifically, like I said, probably the closing attorney actually draft that power of attorney for that transaction. Number two, you need to check with your broker to see if your brokerage has a policy prohibiting you from taking on the power of attorney for your client. Number three, even if your brokerage does allow you to take on power of attorney for your client, you are an independent contractor, and you probably do not want to accept power of attorney for your client. I do not advocate that practice. At Maximum One Companies, we do prohibit our agents from taking on power of attorney for their clients. In essence, you become the principal in that transaction. And should there be any issues down the line after closing with title, with anything, you become the principal. You no longer have agent protections that you would have had you only been the agent and not taken on their power of attorney with respect to that real property and that transaction. Additionally, you need to check with your errors and omissions insurance policy to see if you are covered. If you take on power of attorney for a client with respect to a transaction and there are issues down the line with that transaction, you may not be covered by that E&O insurance. So that is definitely something that you will want to investigate with your E&O insurance. Better yet, just prevent that issue by not taking on power of attorney for your client. What do you do? Person can't be at closing. How do you address that issue? Well, there are a number of ways that I want to outline here just briefly so that you can have a conversation with your clients to make sure that the closing will occur and have everything signed. So number one is you might want to see if the buyer and the seller can do an amendment and agree to change the closing date to when all parties are available. And again, I am a real estate broker here in Georgia, and in Georgia, we do close with closing attorneys together at the closing table. Everybody's there. It's really a great, fun, happy, exciting event when buyer and seller meet face to face. They talk about the house, they transfer title, they exchange keys, they share memories, they share information, and it really is just a really fun, exciting, happy time. So number one, you might want to see if the parties can amend the contract to change it to a new closing date. So that would be one easy way to handle it. Another way would be to see if the party that is not able to attend the closing can find someone else to give their power of attorney to, whether that be a family member or a friend or a neighbor or whomever, co-worker. That would be up to the principal, the buyer or the seller who is not able to attend the closing to find another party other than you, the real estate agent, that they can give their power of attorney to. Again, probably easier if you do contact the closing attorney scheduled to close that transaction and have them draft the closing attorney and arrange for signatures and explanations and all that is involved with that. The third way would be perhaps to arrange with the closing attorney to do a two-part closing. Now, this may depend on which side of the transaction is not able to attend closing, whether it be the buyer side or the seller side. But in essence, you're going to contact the closing attorney and see if you can arrange. It's much easier typically when the seller is not able to attend the closing, and have the closing attorney prepare all the seller side paperwork, and the seller goes in early and signs their side of the documentation if they're not able to be at closing. And then the buyer can come in on the scheduled closing date and finalize everything with their signatures. So you definitely want to check with the closing attorney about doing a two-part closing. The next issue would be, or the next potential solution would be to arrange for what we call a mail-away closing. Again, you need to get, it depends on which side of the transaction is not able to be at closing, whether it's the buyer side or the seller side, and you need to check with the closing attorney. But again, perhaps it's similar to the last one where one of the parties comes in early and signs the documentation actually with the closing attorney. The other is to see if the closing attorney can arrange for a mail away where we call it a mail away, but there's various methods by which the closing attorney will get the closing paperwork, the documentation to the client, whether that be by U.S. mail, by electronic mail, so forth and so on. And another way would be to find out if the closing attorney can arrange with the party that's going to not be available at closing. If they are going to be, let's say, out of town, if the closing attorney scheduled to close the transaction can arrange with an attorney at the location, the physical location where the buyer or the seller is going to be on the day of closing, if they can arrange for that buyer or seller to go into an attorney's office in that location. And so the attorneys can communicate, again, electronically or however they're going to communicate, so that the principal who's not able to attend closing can go to an attorney's office in the physical location where they are going to be and facilitate the closing that way. So these are just some tips to help you as the real estate agent facilitate the issue where your client is not able to physically attend closing on the closing date scheduled. I hope they helped you out. We get emails and calls all the time from agents asking for all kinds of contract tips, license law tips, realtor code of ethics tips. So I ask you to please consider subscribing so that you can stay current on all of that. Please browse through the playlist and the video section on this channel for a lot of tips that hopefully will help you out. And I try to take, comment below, ask me your questions. I try to make even the most complicated of real estate issues crystal clear. If you like this video, please click on the video showing above. Not quite sure which side it'll show up on for some more tips to help you out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education.